What's up everyone, MK Tom Brady here. So in this video I wanted to talk about some questions that a lot of people have had about Sub-Zero, and I really wanted to kind of put a bow on this topic so it doesn't get talked about much anymore and that we could just kind of move forward and do whatever we're going to do with him. And if nothing ever happens, it doesn't, and if it does, it does. But I really wanted to kind of put everything in one place instead of across multiple videos. But I really think you guys will enjoy this watch. So a lot of questions to be answered for sure. The people that were asking for a Sub-Zero guide, there is one available from me over on the Dash Fight YouTube channel. I will put a link in the description below, so definitely be sure to check that out. It's a bit lengthy, but I wanted it to be in depth, so I hope you guys enjoy. Okay, so Sub-Zero. How do I explain how this happened to him? So if NetherRealm Studios, let's say I get a call from Ed Boon when they decide on MK1, and he says, answer the phone, hello Ed, and he goes, Tom, it's Ed Boon. And in my mind, Ed Boon sounds like Vince McMahon, which I can't do a good imitation right now of because I'm sick. And I say, yeah, what's up, Ed? Tom, we're going to give you the clone. But we want the clone to be honest and fair. Sure, Ed. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, absolutely. You know, go there and they say, we want Sub-Zero to be the most honest version he's ever been. Honest. Gotcha. We'll make him a fair and super honest, respectful human being. So first thing I would do is I would attack the ice clone. And I would put a couple of safeguards. One, normally it's active for around 2 seconds. I would cut that in half, make it active for 1.1 seconds, which they did. Then I would take the recovery. I would put added safeguards. Normally the recovery on the clone is around 22 to 28 recovery frames. I would take that and I would double it and put it somewhere in the 40s, which they did. I would do this to ensure that he spends most of the active frames in recovery so that by the time he gets next to you, the clone is just going away. This makes sure that he can't do anything with it while it's out. Then I also would want to tone down how many times you could clone during a fight. I would take the normal cooldown of around 2 seconds, and again, I would double it, making sure that you can't clone again for almost 4 seconds at a 3.5 second cooldown. Then I would go after the EX clone. Now I would do this because I would really want to hammer this point home. EX clone costs 2 bars, but I would want this to be even more unsafe than regular clone and have it spent 2 bars for it. Now there are a handful of characters, maybe 3 to 4, that can't do anything about this, right? But 90% of the cast can. And either they will kill you for it, for a meterless full combo, using cameo or various other moves, or they can still use armor and punish you the same way they could if you did a regular clone. So no matter what, you're not negating your normal punishment. And I would want this to cost 2 bars just to kind of beat into your head. See how you were punished there and it cost you 2 bars instead? Beat into your mind, never do this move. You know, this is why I would make it cost 2 bars, just for a good learning lesson. Then I would look at the slide, one of his best moves ever, right, in MK history, his slide, a great move. Great punisher, very fast. I would tone down the speed. So it's 9 frames in MK9 and MKX. It's 11 frames in MK11. I would make it 14 frames to tone down its punishing power. And then what I would do is I would remove the crouching ability, meaning, so Sub-Zero, when he slides from standing, he goes into crouch. But if you were doing it from crouch, you were able to stay in crouch. I would negate that. I would make it so no matter what, you must always return to stand. See, the standing frames were not part of the move. The standing frames were because you were standing. I would put standing frames in the move now, so no matter how you do it, you must always go to standing first. This is why when you try to slide at like ranges like this, when you see a projectile, you still get hit. It's because he has quite a few standing frames. This ensures that you must be Qui-Gon Jinn in certain scenarios to go under and punish certain projectiles. If you guys are too young or have never seen Star Wars or both, Qui-Gon Jinn is a Jedi. And if you don't know what a Jedi is, I'm not going to go into detail on that. But just know that I'm basically saying you have to use the force in certain scenarios to use this to punish certain projectiles. And that's what I would do if I were to come after the slide. Ice Ball, I would do the same thing they did. I would make it so it's very much lower hit advantage. That's because even on a bad trade, you'll always be able to get a slide. In the situation where you have a trade that's not that much disadvantage, or you block the attack, then I would go ahead and say, okay, now you'll be able to go in and still do a full combo, which you can. You still have enough time to go in and get a full jumping combo, actually. So there's still enough time in the event that you block or don't give up a bad trade. And if you do, you always have slide. You always can call Cameo to give you full combo options from range. This is in line with everybody else, right? So I would put that safeguard in. I would EX Ice Ball, same thing. I would not change the hit advantage because I don't like moves that when you EX them, they spend 1 bar for 10 buffs. The buff is that each projectiles, that's fair enough. I don't like moves where they're unsafe and they don't do anything, and now you spend the bar, now they're safe, now they have armor, now they launch, now they this, now they that, and it's like 1 bar for 5 buffs on a move. I think that's a bit too much, so I'm really okay with that, and I would do the same thing. Then Sub-Zero strings. This is really where I would punish him. I would make sure that on his jab strings that there is an armor gap between every single hit. But I also want to ensure that you could flawless block here, because in the event you don't have armor, I would want to make sure that you don't lose any chip. So you can flawless block any of these hits in the string, all of them actually, and ensure that you lose no chip damage, because I would want to make sure that if you had no bar, that surely you shouldn't lose any chip damage either. These things are reserved for every other character. They shouldn't, Sub-Zero shouldn't be able to do these things because he has a clone, so he shouldn't be able to do what everyone else does. So the next option I would look at is the only 3-hit string that you cannot armor out of every hit. So you can armor out of the last hit. So what I would do is, what if you don't have bar to armor out of it, right? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and make sure it's death on block, because, if you don't have the bar to armor, he should still be able to die, which means that you don't need the armor at all. And keep in mind, this is a 5% low at the end of a string that maybe does like 30%, right? And do we have any examples of that in the game? Oh, we actually do. We have Lord Raiden. Lord Raiden, right? He has a string that you are dead for this. This hits, you are losing 50%. Do not have any disillusion otherwise, right? But there's a 3rd hit to the string. This string does 7%, right? So 7% damage for this string. So when you block it, the first 2 hits are safe. There is a place to armor that 3rd hit, right? But if you don't armor it and you block it, it's only -7. So it's attached to a string that does tremendous more damage when it hits you. And if you don't armor out of the last hit, which of course can be baited, same as Sub-Zero's, right? But if you don't have the bar to armor out, the string's completely safe. Whereas Sub-Zero, and the string even does more damage. It's a more damaging low attached to a string that does more damage, that if you don't armor out of, it's safe. And it gives great staggers, right? And of course, like I said, if you block it, yeah. So then I would, Sub-Zero's damage, it is the way it is. He's got tremendous damage scaling. I don't want to go, beat that dead horse even more than it has been. And I guess I would attack his damage scaling, because you never, quote unquote, know what's going to happen with cameos. I would not change his overhead one bit. I think it's fine the way it is. But the overhead is something that if I were to do something, I would slow it down to make it reactable, because, yeah. But I wouldn't change this at all, just letting you guys know, because look at the range on things like his down 1, right? And then if you go ahead and try to counter poke with something, he can just take a step back. He's already moving back to you with punish. So it's already a good launcher. It leads to nearly unscaled damage when it hits raw. So I would obviously make this reactable, but it already is, and I definitely don't think that should ever change. Sub-Zero's forward 1 mid, I would also make this move slower at 15 frames, and I would make sure that you could low profile it. I mean, you know, and why else would I what else would I do? Characters like Raiden's forward 4 that leads to 50% will go right under this move and low profile it, and you will die. And I would do that as well. Now, they did give him some new moves like, you know, dive kick and, you know, clone punch and deadly vapors, but this just is not enough to compensate for everything that was taken. Why did this happen, I think, is the question. And this is where I'm going to answer. Now, before I give criticism, I will give great praise. See, I know a lot of those people who are testing this game. I have fought them in many, many, many games, MK9, MKX. I have a high degree of respect for their level of intelligence on what is good and what is bad. See, these people were on the very, very front lines of battle, and NetherRealm put the right team around them for this game. This is why this game is so fun and so good. You have people there who spent their hard-earned money, the same as all of us did for a long time, to compete and play. And they know exactly what makes your character so crappy, and know exactly why the characters you were fighting were so stupidly overpowered. To really kind of condense it into the right game where you don't have MK9 Cabal, but you don't have the snore fest that was MK11. So in the end, this is why this game is so fun. You have characters that are filthy, but not over the top filthy, in which I actually wouldn't tone down a single thing, because I think there is a great balance of filth from the top all the way through the mid tier. They're all really, really, really dirty. I don't want to disturb that ecosystem of filth, so to speak. And you have like Sub-Zero Li Mei. Like Sub-Zero is not the only one. Li Mei obviously needs some love, and there might be a few others. But I just want to focus this on Sub-Zero here, because you see the way I detailed everything that happened. I could do that because I know exactly why he was so good and all the ways he would get around stuff or do stuff. But so do those very people there right now. So the same way that I can detail all of these things, they can do so just as much, which is why you have this many safeguards. Because if any one of them were to sit down for 5 minutes and think about all the safeguards they would put in place, they would do the same ones that I do, because they know exactly what I know about the character. And this is why he is the way he is. It is the only possible way that anyone could have knowledge enough to do this many things to him and instill this many safeguards. They've been there, they've seen it, they know what it is, and they know all the safeguards to prevent it. Now, if I were to make changes, what would I do? EX clone, 1 bar, man. Let it be crappy, but 1 bar. I mean, why 2? What are we doing here? Like, what are we really doing here, right? So 2 bars is too much. Unless you want to give it armor. If you want to give it armor, then sure, keep it 2 bars. But for 1 bar, as it is, I think that would be fair. And I don't think it should have armor, by the way. His strings. Right? Well, staying on the clone. The recovery on the ice clone, I would take it from 43, and I would make it around 28 to 30. Maybe let's just say 30. This does not make it safe. This makes it require more of a read to punish, as opposed to, oh, I saw it, let me throw my armor out and get you. And then I would take away the gap on 1-2, take away the gap on 2-1, but you could keep it on the 3rd hit of the string. Much like Raiden's string, I would keep the gap on the 3rd hit, but I would make the low -7. And this is only par for the course for what we see throughout the entire game outside of Sub-Zero. Wouldn't touch his overhead, keep it as it is, wouldn't touch his ice ball, none of that stuff. His cancel advantage, I understand why it is the way it is, because they want you to be able to use cameos to get ice ball and combos. They don't want it to be like a given. So I understand that. I wouldn't touch the cancel advantage on hit, but I would on block, just to be able to make it a read, again, to punish the clone cancel and also for things like cameo. Right now, that's fake. You can just neutral jump out of there. You don't even have to armor out of it. Everything Sub-Zero has is completely fake. Now, for those that say, oh, but you can call cameos, though, you know, for Sub-Zero's jab strings in general right now, he'd have to call a cameo in advance, right? Because, so before he even does a jab, he has to call cameo. No one else in the game has to do stuff like that. He's just not able to use a lot of the cameo filth that other characters can. And if you had to armor out of something like this, right, that'd be fine, but you can just neutral jump out of half of the stuff that he can do or jump over it. And so cancel advantage, I would definitely improve that. I don't know that I would touch his scaling any, but just because I might be a little scared as well. I might tone down the scaling a little bit, but you know, as far, I'm not toning it up, I mean like reduce how, you know, multiple bar combos scale, but probably not by much. I would take his mid, I would keep it the way it is, but I would increase the hitbox. So as far as not the horizontal, but the vertical, so that you can't go under it anymore. Slide, this is an animation thing. The slide animation has the stand in it. They're not going to change that. It is the way it is. So I would make it probably around 10 or 11 frames to compensate for the fact that he has to get in a crouch. There's no way to negate those standing frames. And the ice clone, speaking of the recovery, I would also make it so you could clone every 2 to 2.5 seconds. I would just put it back to the way it always was. You know, I would shave a full second off of its cooldown, basically. And I think that would be more in line with where it was in the beta of the game. I think that would be fair. What we're talking about here for Sub-Zero does not make him a top character. When you compare even the suggestions that I have with the rest of the cast, he's still a bottom to bottom of the mid-tier character, which is fine. I don't think, well, at least for me, I don't care if he's the worst character in the game. There are two versions of a worst character. There's a character that's the worst or near the worst because their tools are just too underwhelming, or a character that's the worst because there are better characters. A character that is near the bottom because there are just better characters is still very powerful because his tools are still good. There are just better tools available in the game, but his tools are good. A character that's at or near the bottom because their tools are just way too honest, way too many safeguards, that character is in trouble, and that is where Sub-Zero is. This is probably the last I'm going to talk about the Sub-Zero stuff. As far as this stuff, we'll just do guides and whatnot. But yeah, this is a problem, and it may never get fixed. Maybe it does. I don't want to assume. My gut tells me they will never buff Sub-Zero ever in MK history, so I feel bad for a lot of you guys that are going to be spending your money to play this character in tournament. But, you know, pigs might fly after all, and maybe something gets done. Thanks for watching, everyone, and stay tuned for more content.